What does it mean to be middle power in today's world? As a global dynamic shift, countries like South Korea and Australia are increasingly recognized for their diplomatic influence and regional leadership. To gain insight into political identity and international role of such middle powers, we asked students and professors from both Korea and Australia to share their views on middle power diplomacy, domestic politics, and how inclusive policymaking is toward international students and immigrants. To begin, we spoke with Hoover's Professor of International Relations, Chong Gyung, to gain an expert perspective of how middle powers shape global diplomacy and where South Korea stands.
Well, there are a lot of definitions regarding middle country, size or will or idea or foreign policy attitude. There are a lot of criteria that can make a certain country described as middle power. But the most important thing is that the national self-identity has a middle power. And we can find a lot of countries in the world, even though, the size is small, and then, when it comes to its materialistic power, it cannot be categorized as middle power, but they argue that they are middle power. And before the collapse of the Cold War, there exists just two categories of the states, strong power and weak power. But around the 1980s and 1990s, the idea of middle power popped up, and it became prevalent in the IL arena. And so, especially Australia, when it comes to Australia, the size is big, but when it comes to population, it's relatively small. But anyway, Australia make its identity as a middle power. When it comes to Korea, just assume that if we are located at the Latin American continents or African continents, we can be categorized as a big power or regional hegemon. But as we are surrounded by four big powers, the United States, China, Russia, and Japan, and we have no able to, take a gesture as a weak power, so as a way of overcoming the status as a weak power. The middle power identity appeared, and it was supported by not only by the government, but also by the scholars and strategists and so on. And that is middle power. So middle power can be directly connected to the national self-identity or national self-image or national conception of roles. Yeah.
Following the expert view, we turn to students to hear how the next generation understand Korea's global role and its impact on international communities.
What do you define a middle power as?
Personally, I would define a middle power as a sort of ally from the bigger powers, and they provide diplomatic relations, economic support, as well as international cooperation. I think that's the easiest way to define a middle power.
So, how about South Korea's position in the world right now?
I think South Korea is also a middle power. They are very strong alliances with the US, and they help keep the security order in the East Asia side.
Okay. Do you believe international students have political power?
Maybe indirectly. I think if a lot of international students engage with local students, I think it can definitely shape their identity more too, because of all the cultural differences that are taken into account. But I wouldn't necessarily say directly they have a sort of middle power.
What role do international students play in relation to South Korean politics? Do you think they are involved? Because they don't have a vote, but do you think they're involved?
I think they are not necessarily involved because, as you said, they do not have the right to vote. But again, I do think they can share their diplomatic experiences, their visions on how it is going, for example, in Europe. So I think indirectly they can maybe influence certain decisions, but I don't necessarily think that international students have a big role in shaping politics.
I think maybe they do consider us international students and immigrants, but they more focus on Korean citizens. I think they can make more politics to help international students, but I think they're doing good right now.
I don't think we have political power. I feel like we are considered important because this might sound a little bit pessimistic, but then in the bigger picture, international students, that's why there's especially here in the context of South Korea, there's a lot right now because they want their world ranking or their standing to be a little bit higher, and in order for that to happen, they need international students or international people to come here. So I think they see us more as statistics, data, numbers, in that sense, and not an important asset.
After gathering insights from Korea, we reached out to students and experts in Australia to understand how the role of middle power is viewed from abroad.
Politics are forever changing around the world, with relationships between countries straining as a result of the recent battle for global dominance.
Australia is uniquely positioned in world politics as our nation has significant ties to Asia-Pacific and Western countries whilst maintaining its position as a middle power.
To give us some insight into the roles that middle powers play, we asked UQ Senior Lecturer Dr. Frank Moles for his opinion.
A country like Australia can be powerful in one way but less powerful in another way, and that's where the category of middle power starts to crumble a little bit, right? So you can then say, well, in what regards is Australia a middle power?
He also spoke in regard to the recent Australian election and how middle powers, while commonly seen as followers, do have their own ways of standing out.
I would be inclined to say that Australia is a follower, is sort of pushed about by these bigger forces, right? But the fact that we see that the population in its entirety through the democratic process can give off a signal is still not something to be forgotten. Right?
Australia prides itself on being a very multicultural country, with immigration being a major point in our political landscape. The University of Queensland is home to a large number of international students, and we asked Dr. Moles if he believed they have any political power.
Do these students have power or influence? My inclination is to say no. Reason being is they come from very different systems.
In response, we spoke to some international students in the journalism and international relations sectors on their opinion of this matter.
In terms of you, do you think you have any political power in Australia?
I don't think I have. Well, it's not like I don't have any, but I have limited power because I don't get the right to vote. But I don't think it's necessarily only like the right to vote determines whether you have power or not, because as a uni student or as someone who lived there for like 5 years now, I think I have the connection and I have like so I don't know if that's directly relevant or not, but I'm the deputy president of the Justice and the Law Society. So then I raise human rights issues, I organize events like that, and so that's also sort of like a power.
I think so. Even like immigrants who aren't able to vote, at least with like Australia still having very democratic ideals in the foundations of the government, with like freedom of speech and media. Like, I mean, we've seen examples in recent years of like, especially like students in UQ encampments and their protests, and obviously these issues have like made it to mainstream media, and then politicians are forced to consider that. So I think everybody has at least some amount of power in the political system.
No, I don't consider that I am not a local resident. I'm not a PR. I am a foreign student from Hong Kong, so I do not have any political power in the nation.
And do you care about not having any political power?
Not really, consider I am a foreigner here. I believe my impact or like my political decision that I make would not be so impactful.
This then raises the question, how do our international students feel about Australian politics in comparison to the world?
I think Australia tries to stay in the middle. They try not to be on either side. I use the trade war as an example again. It's not on the China side, it's not on the American side. It's like, oh, I'm doing myself, I'm just here. Just don't enter my area. I'm just doing what I'm doing, which is good, I think.
seeing how Australia reflects American debates right now and what our perspectives are on current US actions. Some of it is kind of concerning to me, but that's just politics in the end, you know. That's all I can say, I guess.